Most people think personality is something you're born with, and it stays the same. But for INFJs, the journey through life looks very different. It's not just about growing up. It's about shifting through deep internal stages that change how they think, feel, and interact with the world. If you've ever known an INFJ, you might feel like you've met more than one version of the same person. That's not your imagination. INFJs often go through a quiet evolution that surprises even themselves. What they value, how they behave, and how they handle life all transform at key points along the way. These changes aren't random. They follow a kind of pattern, one that's tied to how the INFJ personality is built. From childhood imagination to midlife balance, and finally into quiet wisdom, each stage brings its own challenges and breakthroughs. What makes this path unexpected is that many INFJs don't realize they're going through stages at all. They just feel out of place, confused, or restless until something clicks and they step into a new phase of understanding. And because most people don't see what's happening inside, these changes can look sudden or strange from the outside. This video breaks down the 6 unexpected stages every INFJ goes through in life. Whether you are an INFJ, think you might be one, or care about someone who is, this timeline can help explain a lot of the confusion and change that happens along the way. You'll see where the quiet intensity comes from, why INFJs seem to shift over time, and how they become more clear, more balanced, and more themselves with each passing year. These stages aren't fixed by age, but they do tend to show up in order. Some people may skip ahead or return to earlier stages, but the journey overall stays the same. Let's look at the first stage of this inner journey, and where the INFJ's mind really begins to form. Stage number 1, childhood, discovery of introverted intuition. For INFJs, everything begins with intuition. Not the casual gut feeling kind of intuition, but a deep inner sense of how things will unfold. Even in childhood, INFJs tend to live more in their imagination than in the real world. They notice patterns, think about the future, and pick up on things that others miss. This stage is where introverted intuition takes root. It's the dominant function in the INFJ personality, and it shows up early, often before the INFJ has words for what they're feeling or seeing. Kids in this stage may seem dreamy, distant, or lost in thought. But in their mind, they're asking big questions. What's the meaning behind this? Why are people acting like that? What will happen next? Parents and teachers might describe these children as old souls. They may ask deep questions that seem beyond their age. They might also prefer to play alone, making up their own stories or thinking quietly instead of joining in loud games. That's not because they're shy, it's because their inner world is so rich and full. This stage also comes with a strong sense of differentness. INFJ children often feel like they don't fit in. They might sense that their thoughts and feelings are more intense than others. They may try to hide how deeply they care about things or how much they notice. Over time, this can lead them to retreat even more into their own head. But that inner world is a gift. During this time, INFJs build the foundation for the rest of their life. They start to trust their insights. They notice emotional undercurrents between people. They might not be able to explain it, but they know when something is off. They start to connect the dots that others miss. At the same time, this stage can be lonely. Because they're different, INFJ kids might feel misunderstood. They may have trouble finding friends who think the same way. They might even try to change themselves to fit in, pushing their natural intuition into the background. Still, that quiet observer in them never shuts off. Even when they're pretending to be like everyone else, they're watching, listening, building meaning from the chaos of everyday life. By the end of this stage, most INFJs don't yet know they're INFJs, but they do know they're different. They feel pulled towards something deeper. And that inner drive sets the tone for everything that comes next. Stage number 2. Adolescence, developing extroverted feeling. As INFJs enter their teen years, a major shift begins. They start to focus more on the people around them. They care more about how others feel, how they're seen, and how their actions affect the group. This is the stage where extroverted feeling, FE, begins to grow. FE is all about emotional connection and social harmony. INFJs start to read the room, sense emotional changes in their friends or family, and want to make sure everyone is okay. They might become peacemakers. They might start trying to fix conflicts between people. They feel responsible for the emotional tone of their environment, even when it's not their job. This change often surprises people who knew the INFJ as a quiet child. Suddenly, they're more social. They might be joining clubs, helping others, or becoming more involved in friendships. But underneath that friendly surface, they're still processing everything deeply. They're still observing, reflecting, and building their quiet inner map of the world. This stage is also when people-pleasing can begin. Because INFJs care so much about how others feel, they may start to adjust their own behavior to keep everyone happy. They might hide their true thoughts. They might go along with things they don't really agree with. They're not trying to lie, they just don't want to cause pain. At the same time, the INFJ may start feeling a gap between who they are on the inside and how they act on the outside. They might notice that they're showing one version of themselves to the world, but keeping another version locked away. This split can cause inattention. The emotional depth of adolescence adds to this. INFJs in this stage often feel everything intensely. They may fall into deep sadness, frustration, or confusion. They might carry the weight of their friends' problems. And because they're still learning how to manage all of that emotion, it can sometimes lead to burnout. Many INFJs in this stage write in journals or pour their thoughts into art, music, or books. They're trying to make sense of the emotions they feel and the roles they play. Some might discover their passion for helping others. Others may become very quiet and private again, unsure of where they belong. But through all of this, the INFJ is learning. They're starting to understand how people work. They're building empathy. They're learning how to show care in real ways. This stage may feel messy and confusing, but it's an important step in how INFJs grow into the people they become. By the end of this stage, INFJs may feel torn between their need to be true to themselves and their desire to be there for others. That conflict becomes the seed of the next stage, where things can either explode or evolve. Stage number 3, young adulthood. Fiery inferior, sensing surprises. Young adulthood is often the time when INFJs hit a wall they didn't see coming. After years of relying on their intuition and feelings, a new part of them starts to wake up, and it's not gentle. It's their inferior function, extroverted sensing, or C. C is the opposite of what INFJs are used to. It's all about being in the moment, paying attention to the physical world, and responding quickly to what's around them. But because say is their weakest function, INFJs often experience it in extreme or unhealthy ways. This stage can feel like a sudden craving for sensory experiences. INFJs, who were once quiet and thoughtful, might suddenly seek out thrill, intensity, or fast-paced activities. They might throw themselves into new experiences, parties, travel, risky decisions, or even sensory overload, like binge eating, intense exercise, or loud music. This isn't because they've changed completely. It's because their shadow function is pushing its way to the front. After years of ignoring the physical world, the INFJ's mind is now demanding they pay attention to it, and it often comes out in a chaotic, uncontrollable way. During this stage, INFJs can also feel anxious or overstimulated. Their say is not well developed, so they may struggle to manage sudden changes, loud environments, or too much activity at once. It can lead to panic, burnout, or sensory shutdown. They may feel like they're failing at adult life, even when they're doing their best. Another surprise in this stage is that INFJs may start doubting their usual strengths. Their intuition might feel blocked. Their emotions might feel too heavy. They may start to question everything: who they are, what they want, what they're doing with their life. This is where many INFJs hit their first major identity crisis. They want to feel grounded, but they don't know how. They want excitement, but it overwhelms them. They want control, but everything feels out of balance. This push and pull can be exhausting. The good news is that this chaos is part of their growth. It's the beginning of balance. INFJs who go through this stage learn that they can't live only in their heads. They need to pay attention to their bodies, their environment, and their energy. This stage often leads to one of two things: burnout or awakening. Some INFJs crash, take a step back, and realize they need better boundaries and routines. Others begin to explore grounding habits, like nature walks, slow mornings, better sleep, or mindful eating. These physical habits help calm the chaos. Most INFJs don't love this stage while they're in it. It's hard, unpredictable, and messy. But it's necessary. It teaches them what they can't learn by thinking alone. It introduces balance, and balance is what sets up the next stage of their personal growth. Stage number 4, career building, awakening, introverted thinking. At this stage, INFJs often enter their careers or settle into their adult responsibilities. But while the outside world may look more stable, the inside world is changing again. Now the INFJ starts to tap into their tertiary function, introverted thinking, or TI. TI is all about logic, analysis, and internal structure. It's not focused on people's feelings. It's focused on how things work and whether ideas make sense. For the INFJ, this new function adds a layer of clarity that wasn't there before. INFJs in this stage start asking tougher questions. Does this belief really make sense? Is this the most efficient way to do this? Am I being fair or just emotional? These questions mark the beginning of critical self-analysis. This can be a double-edged sword. On one side, INFJs become better problem solvers. They can organize their thoughts more clearly. They begin to express their ideas with more confidence. They may even surprise others with how logical and structured they've become. On the other side, INFJs can fall into perfectionism. TI makes them want to get everything right. They may spend too much time analyzing, rechecking, or doubting their decisions. They may feel torn between what feels good and what makes sense. In the workplace, this makes them more effective. They can now pair emotional insight with logical planning. They can manage teams, build systems, and handle details better than before. But it can also lead to burnout if they don't manage their expectations. This stage is often quiet but powerful. INFJs may not talk about the changes they're going through, but they start to feel more mature, more responsible, and more capable. They start building confidence, not just based on emotion or intuition, but on thinking and action. They may also feel more alone. As their thinking becomes clearer, they may pull away from groupthink or emotional drama. They may want more time alone to figure things out. And they may struggle with people who don't think deeply or value honest discussion. Still, this is one of the most empowering stages for INFJs. It's where they start to feel like they have real control, not over others, but over themselves. And that control leads to the next phase, balance. Stage number 5, midlife, integrating sensing and balance. By midlife, many INFJs have gone through the intense shifts of youth, career, and emotional growth. This stage is where they finally start to find balance, especially with their weaker functions. They don't ignore their sensing side anymore. They begin to work with it. This means INFJs become more grounded. They pay attention to the present moment. They learn to enjoy simple things, like a walk outside, a favorite meal, or just sitting quietly with a cup of coffee. These things may have seemed unimportant before. Now they feel necessary. The main shift here is the conscious use of extroverted sensing. Instead of letting it control them in bursts, INFJs begin to manage it. They might start practicing mindfulness, exercise regularly, or organize their space in a way that brings calm. These habits help them stay connected to reality, not just ideas. They also stop trying to be perfect. The T function they built earlier now works in a calmer way. It helps them plan and solve problems, but it no longer drives them to overthink everything. They let go of needing every answer to be perfect. Relationships also begin to change. INFJs stop trying to please everyone. They begin to speak up more clearly. They set firmer boundaries, say no when they need to, and protect their peace. They have learned from past burnout, and they're not going back. This stage also brings a deeper connection to purpose. INFJs start to focus on what really matters to them, not just what looks good or feels nice. They might change careers, take time off, or start a creative project they've always wanted to do. They become more direct, more open, and more confident in their values. They don't just sense what others want, they ask themselves what they want. That's a big shift from earlier stages, when they were often focused on keeping others happy. And most of all, they feel calmer. Life still brings problems, but the INFJ is no longer running from crisis to crisis. They've built tools. They know how to manage stress. They've found rhythms that work for them. By this stage, INFJ start to feel like they're finally coming into their own. They're not perfect, but they're more complete, and they're ready for what comes next. Stage number 6, later life, toward wholeness and individuation. In the later stage of life, INFJs often experience something powerful and unexpected. After decades of inner conflict, shifting roles, and personal growth, they begin to feel whole. This stage is not about chasing goals or fixing problems. It's about becoming their true self, fully, calmly, and with deep understanding. This process is often called individuation. It means pulling together all parts of the self: intuition, feeling, thinking, sensing, and letting them work together in harmony. INFJs at this stage don't reject any part of who they are. They accept their quiet side, their emotional depth, their logical mind, and their physical needs. Instead of feeling torn between helping others and taking care of themselves, they now find a natural balance. They give when they have energy. They rest when they need it. They no longer feel guilty for saying no or for doing things differently. They trust their pace. They also stop explaining themselves to others. INFJs in this stage no longer need approval. They don't need people to get them. They have spent years trying to be understood, and now they finally understand themselves. This doesn't mean they stop growing, but growth no longer feels like a fight. It feels like alignment. Everything starts to fit together. Their childhood insights, teenage emotions, early adult confusion, career skills, and midlife habits all combine into one steady way of living. They may begin to share their wisdom with others, not in loud or showy ways, but through quiet leadership. They may mentor younger people, write, teach, or simply offer presence and patience. Their ability to see the big picture becomes a gift for those who need it. At this stage, INFJs often reconnect with things they loved earlier in life but had to put aside. They may return to creative hobbies, spiritual exploration, or deep reading. These interests give them peace and purpose, not pressure. Time also feels different. They no longer rush. They're not trying to catch up or prove anything. They focus on what's meaningful. They enjoy silence, nature, good conversations, and stillness. These simple things, which once felt small, now feel rich and full. This is when INFJs are most at peace with being different. What once felt like a burden Their intensity, their depth, their quiet knowing now feels like a gift. They're no longer trying to fix themselves. They're living fully as they are. This final stage is not about becoming someone new. It's about finally becoming whole. The INFJ path isn't simple. It's full of unexpected shifts, deep changes, and quiet struggles. But through every stage, imagination, emotion, conflict, clarity, grounding, and peace, there is a pattern of steady growth. What once felt confusing becomes part of a larger design. Each stage builds on the last. The INFJ doesn't stay stuck in one way of being. They grow through layers, first by feeling different, then by trying to belong, later by learning balance, and finally by finding peace within themselves. If you're an INFJ, you may have recognized pieces of your journey in these stages. You may be in the middle of confusion or on the edge of calm. No matter where you are, your path is unfolding. Trust that. And if you're someone who loves or works with an INFJ, know this: what you're seeing is only one chapter. There is more beneath the surface, and there is more still to come. The INFJ story isn't about fitting in. It's about becoming whole, quietly, fully, and in their own time.